Welcome back to Kat's Kitchen. My name is Kat, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own homemade rose syrup. If you love a rose latte, a rose matcha, chai, lemonade, this recipe is going to be perfect for you. This syrup recipe is so simple, just like every other homemade syrup recipe, and you only need 5 ingredients. So let's get into the ingredients and then the equipment and then roll right into the actual recipe. The first ingredient is culinary grade dried rose petals, and you want them to be culinary grade so that you're not consuming like any insecticides or pesticides that were sprayed on these roses. Make sure it is culinary grade. I bought this bag off of Amazon. The rose petals smell so beautiful. It's almost like potpourri-esque. So you need 1 cup of the dried rose petals, then 1 cup of granulated cane sugar, 1 cup of water. I use purified water. I feel like the water does make a drastic difference. So if you're just using tap water from the sink, I very much recommend buying a gallon of purified water. And then half a tablespoon of lemon juice. We'll add this at the very end, and it's just going to brighten the syrup, add a little bit of citrus vibes without being like a super lemony flavor. And then I have half a teaspoon of salt. If you've seen any of my previous homemade syrup recipes, I love adding just a little bit of salt to my syrups to really bring out the sweetness, to further enhance the flavor. It's not gonna make your syrup salty at all. We're doing a little bitty amount, half a teaspoon, but I genuinely believe it makes all the difference. But that's all you need, 5 simple ingredients. You can get them all at the grocery store. I don't know if you can get dried rose petals at the grocery store. You might be able to in the tea aisle, but this one for sure off of Amazon, the rest at the grocery store. And then as far as equipment goes, you need a saucepan. I'm just using this giant one today, this giant pot, because of the color. I just feel like it matches a little bit better with the rose vibe we got going on. But use whatever saucepan you need. It just needs to be large enough to fit, obviously, all the ingredients, and then to account for a little bit of the syrup bubbling up, because we're gonna boil it. 2 quarts should be plenty. You also need a strainer. I have a stainless steel strainer here. Once we boil the syrup, we're gonna strain out the rose petals. We're gonna strain it out that way it doesn't continue to kind of like brew over time. We want it to stop brewing so the flavor remains the same throughout the time that you have the syrup in your fridge. So you need a strainer to strain out the rose petals. And then just a spoon to mix. I like to mix the sugar, water, and rose petals together before boiling. And then a cup or a syrup bottle, whatever you're wanting to store your syrup in. Just some sort of storing vessel. I like thick mason jars or like an actual syrup bottle. Kind of looks like this one, but that's all you need. Very, very, very simple and straightforward. Let's jump into the recipe. Starting with 1 cup of granulated cane sugar, then 1 cup of our dried rose petals, 1 cup of water, purified water, and then half a teaspoon of salt. I love flaky sea salt, but any salt works in this recipe. And then just stir this around. I just stir to dissolve the sugar a little bit and kind of get these rose petals moistened. And then trying to scrape down the sides as much as possible. The rose petals are going to float because they are very light. So I'm just trying to kind of scrape them down into the water sugar mixture to get them a little wet. Ding, ding, ding. But they don't need to like be fully coated or anything beforehand because they are going to boil and soak up a lot of the mixture, and then they'll get nice and wet and absorbed on the stove. I do want to mention no lemon juice right now. Don't add that in until the very end. Just sugar, water, rose petals, and salt. So let's take this over to the stove and bring to a roaring boil. This is what it should look like. Rose petals, sugar, water, and then turn your stove all the way to high and let this come to a roaring boil. The syrup has come to a roaring boil. You can see all the bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. So just turn this down to a low simmer. I do like to just quickly give it a stir to make sure the rose petals are absorbed inside the water, or at least coated in the water, and then let this simmer for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, your syrup should look like this. So just turn off the heat and remove this from the burner. All right, the syrup is done simmering, and so the next step is to strain out this mixture. We're just gonna strain out all of those rose petal leaves, and they have soaked up quite a bit of the liquid, but we wanna strain out as much of that liquid as we can into our cup, mason jar, storing vessel, whatever. Make sure your cup can handle a good amount of heat though. My only beef with this pot is that it gets so hot. I wish it didn't. And then because these rose petals have soaked up so much of this liquid, just use the back of a spoon to push out as much of that syrup liquid as possible. It'll take a little bit of time and lots of smushing, but you want to get out all of that syrupy goodness. Where, oh, where has my little dog gone? Why is that in my head? Where, oh, where can she be? All right, we have our beautiful rose syrup. This recipe makes about 5 ounces of liquid. So if you want more than that, feel free to double the recipe. And then I'm just adding in my ½ teaspoon of lemon juice. Again, just to really brighten the syrup, and look at the beautiful color. It makes it just this really, really gorgeous, stunning rose color. I mean, can you tell on camera how beautiful that is? Oh my word. And taste test. It is so lovely. It is so lovely. It's like perfectly floral, sweet, so lovely. If you love rose syrup, you absolutely have to give this recipe a try. So simple, literally add everything to a pot, bring it to a boil and let it simmer, and then just strain out the rose petals. That's it. Add lemon juice, yes, but then that's it. So now that we have our rose syrup, just let this cool completely for about 1 hour to 2 hours, just on the counter. Let it cool off so that you can add a lid and then place in the fridge. And this will be good for up to 3 weeks in the fridge if it's sealed in an airtight container. But there you have it. Homemade rose syrup. So, so, so beautiful. Stay tuned for future videos. I will be using the syrup in various recipes so you can see exactly how to use it at home. I have lots and lots of other homemade syrups on my website as well as my YouTube channel. So I will link various recipes in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you absolutely love this recipe. Let me know if you give it a try and what you think about it, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah! Got a blast.